Hi guys, it's Stefano from Lucas here. I'm very happy to introduce a series of the video tutorial where we will explain you how to use properly our resins in order to have a super great castings. See you, and let's start with the first video.
Let's start with the preliminary operations. The tree was already weighed and record its weight for future calculation of the necessary alloy. Let's close the flask with the rubber stopper. Do this accurately to avoid future accidents or resin spills. The following step is to wrap the cylinder with paper tape. I prefer to use paper tape because it aids in the curing of the investment by allowing a small amount of air to pass through. I'll start from the bottom, making sure to cover and close all the holes by making it adhere well and avoiding creases. I'll continue moving upwards in sections, overlapping each new layer with the one below it by at least 5 or 6 millimeters. You can also continue in a spiral, but it's a bit more difficult with paper tape because it can't stretch or deform. You can also use different stuff like plastics, film. This step isn't as critical for the final casting result. What's important is to leave a margin above the flask's edge. This will help us pull a proper vacuum and prevent liquid from overflowing due to the subsequent increase in volume. This is especially true if you have hollowed models and you need to tilt the flask in order to permit the investment to enter everywhere. I'll press the tape evenly and carefully onto the metal flask and check for any uncovered areas. Let's set the flask aside and begin the preparation of the investment. We'll need 2 clean containers, a digital scale, and a spatula. Even though our mixer has an automatic water addition system, we actually advise against using it. In our experience, it's never accurate and you risk making simple mistakes. For this tutorial, we'll be using Certus Optima Prestige. For a cylinder like this, 100 millimeters in diameter and 150 millimeters high, you'll need 1500 grams of powder and 37% water. For our resins, we always recommend using a water-to-powder ratio never exceeding 38%. The phase of measuring the water and powder needs to be done calmly and meticulously. Even an error of just 1% can compromise the entire job. Remember to tear your containers and always wear a face mask when handling the unmixed investment powder. I'll start by taking the necessary amount of powder from the bag and putting it into the basin I have prepared. The 1500 grams means exactly 1500. Not 1 gram more, not 1 less. You need to be meticulous here. It's tough to get consistent results even when you're just baking a cake. Imagine how critical it is in this situation where we're dealing with physics and chemistry. Now that the powder is ready, let's put away the plaster packaging, making sure to protect it from humidity, and start preparing the necessary water. The water we're going to use must be demineralized. Tap water contains too many elements that can interact with our binder and compromise its performance. The 37% of 1500 grams are exactly 555 grams of water. In this instance too, the measurement needs to be more than perfect. You won't get consistent casting results if you're not absolutely precise with your measurements and using demineralized water. Don't complain about inconsistent casting results later if you're not convinced about the importance of accurately weighing your components and using demineralized water. Even when you cook, you try to be accurate. Here you need to be even more so. It is chemistry, not art. Let's check that our vacuum chamber's valve, as well as the vacuum valve itself, are both working properly. We'll start by adding a few grams of water and a few grams of the powder. This is to verify there are no leaks and to ensure the water we're about to add doesn't drip from the valve. I'm now adding all the water and then the powder. We recommend checking the mixing times with a timer. It's very important to adhere to them. All the investment manufacturer providing technical data sheets where you can check it. I'm now adding the powder, being careful not to disperse any of it. Adding the powder gradually to the water and not the other way around helps prevent lumps from forming. You can also use a kitchen whisk, but respecting the quantities and timings is crucial. Always add the powder to the water and the whisk should be used at the lowest speed, avoiding too much air entering the mixture or heating it up. Both air and heat accelerate the hardening process, compromising the performance of the investment. Using a spatula, I perform a manual pre-mixing to remove all the powder that is stuck to the sides of the container and break up the larger lumps. I spend a maximum of 1 minute on this operation. Let's retrieve all the investment from the spatula, close the vacuum bell, mount it on the mixer and begin the actual mixing operations. I want to emphasize that we preheated the vacuum pump beforehand. Especially when it's cold, it's a good idea to preheat it or turn it on 3 to 5 minutes prior so it can be fully efficient. Even with Bluecast X-Vest V2, the water content should be 36 or 38%, and the preparation time 1 minute faster compared to Optima Prestige investment. Let's connect the mixer motor, connect the vacuum hose, and turn on the vacuum pump, activate the blades and mix the compound for 3 minutes, maintaining the vacuum level at maximum. For a more homogeneous mix, you can vary the intensity of the motor's revolutions a couple of times. This will help prevent the compound from settling. Ensure the vacuum is always performing at maximum power. Slowly allow a little air to enter to settle the mixture's mass, then immediately return the vacuum to its maximum level. So check your chrono and wait for the 3 minutes end. After 3 minutes, slow down the mixer speed and you can begin pouring the liquid by opening the discharge valve. This is an operation you need to do very carefully to prevent the pieces from being damaged or detaching due to the weight of the coating itself. Try to open the valve gradually, letting the investment fall quite slowly. Personally, I prefer to activate the vibrations only when the casting tree is partially submerged by the investment. At the beginning, the intensity of the vibration is low for me, and I will up it only once the tree is completely submerged. When the flask is completely full, close the valve, increase the intensity of the vibrations, always keeping the vacuum at its maximum level. Disconnect the motor to allow for greater vibration effectiveness and continue this operation for 2 minutes. Overall, Certus recommends completing all operations within a maximum of 8 minutes. Personally, I prefer to keep the total time around 7 minutes. You can also lightly tap the base of the mixer to allow smaller air bubbles to detach from the models. Now I'll let it vibrate for another 30 seconds before letting the flask rest undisturbed for 3 hours. A resting time between 3 and 24 hours is ideal, and there aren't significant differences within this range. All that's left now is to clean the equipment and wait. Once the flask's resting time is over, we move on to preparing the alloy, in this case brass. I'll then place the flask in the oven following our best burnout process. Our best burnout is Step 1, from 0 to 150 degrees Celsius. Step 2, hold at 150 degrees Celsius for 3 hours. Step 3, from 150 to 700 degrees Celsius. All the ramps are 8 or 10 degrees per minute. Step 4, hold at 700 degrees Celsius for 3 hours. All temperatures are in degrees Celsius. Obviously, you will need to remove all the paper tape from the flask and clear any excess of hardened investment. If you don't have a ventilated oven, we recommend rotating the flask during the last hour of the burnout peak. At the burnout end, we now remove the flask from the oven and place it in our casting machine. At the end of the process, we let the flask cool for 10-15 minutes in case of brass, and then we will quench it. And just like that, the job is done. Perfect casting. You can see the result on our social media. We were hoping this video was helpful for all the community. I'll say goodbye and see you at the next tutorial.